Thank you to all of our speakers. I'm glad we have a little extra time this time. I'll start with, there were a lot of questions for Ori. For these local changes, as Ori, you were discussing around zoning, whose role do you see it as to generate model policies and work with the 101 cities to get them adopted in timely fashion so that full regional implementation of BACMED's rules can occur smoothly?
Yeah, and I think there's a number of different approaches that we could take. I'll say it is hard to develop things on your own as a local government, and then you're bringing things, and the question is always, well, what are other cities doing? And so there's this kind of waiting and kind of looking around to see who's going to go first and what can we use as a model. So I think that it could be hugely helpful to have something either from BayREN or we're part of like a RICAPS group, and something at a more regional or maybe at the county level to try to make it a little bit easier for local governments to take something and run with it, right? Like we're gonna have to take it through our own unique processes and kind of work with our internal stakeholders, but it would be very helpful to have some of these things developed. And then also for consistency, right? So that people aren't running into different requirements in every city, which I don't know if we're ever going to fix, but as much as we can try to make things more uniform, I think that'll help with all of these streamlining efforts as well.
I'll just add that I think Ori's the Menlo Parks ordinance is in effect a model code at this point that people can take a look at that and see how it might work for their jurisdictions.
Great. You guys have been on it in the Q&A section for answering quickly. So I'm just going to keep going through these, even if they've already been answered in the chat. But how might BayREN help all jurisdictional employees become familiar with, or better yet, own a heat pump water heater and get an electrification plan to improve their personal familiarity with these things that will improve their community safety?
I think that one's probably for me, Ryan. So I think a couple levels to that question. We do provide trainings for building departments and these events, these forums for all local government staff and other stakeholders in the Bay Area. So those are two of the ways that we get some of the information and education out there to folks, as well as the resources that we make available on our website. I know that some of our CCA partners are, I don't know if they've done it or if they were just thinking about it, but we're thinking about options for letting people to increase that familiarity to approach that. I would say if you live in the North Bay and you can get to the Advanced Energy Center in, where's that one? In Santa Rosa, I think it is. And then go there. It's really cool. You can see, and they've got heat pump water heaters, they've got heat pumps, they've got combined ones, induction stoves, the whole thing. You can go there, touch it, see it. So Sonoma Clean Power runs that. So that's a really great resource for doing that as well. Not sure if I hit every element there, but that's what I remember. So
great, thanks, Karen. Kind of as a follow-up to that, would it be possible for BayREN to review all the permit requirements for electrification throughout the Bay Area and act as that model and propose a uniform permitting process across all jurisdictions?
I will say, there are these resources that we put together. We are planning to be working on, I forgot to mention, we've identified permitting as one of our priorities going into 2024. So we are going to be working on that. I don't know yet exactly what form that will take, but permitting gets complicated pretty quickly. So we'll give it a shot and we'll keep everyone informed.
I'd like to add to that question. I think it would be very valuable, not just to look at how permitting works in the Bay Area, but to look at how permitting works in the world, because we have some of the most stringent permitting requirements, and we might not be the best example of a place on which to base how we're permitting the clean energy transition.
Great,
good
thanks,
point.
y'all. There was a question it was directed towards Ori. I believe Eric may have mentioned it in the chat too, but any research on heat pumps with low decibel ratings? City of Santa Monica is trying to do a very similar zoning amendment and received many questions from Planning Commission, particularly on the availability, feasibility, pricing of very quiet heat pumps.
Yeah, I could maybe let Eric speak to it because I think he had a favorite one, but there were a few, especially on the kind of heat pumps for space conditioning. I will take this opportunity to say that we should pressure the heat pump water heater community to put the product information back into their product specification sheets about how loud their units are. I got a lot of not louder than a microwave, and some frustrating customer service calls to different manufacturers trying to get that information. I will say Rheem did provide it, but you had to call them. So I can turn to Eric if you have other.
Yeah, I assume that the manufacturers took it out of their specifications a year and a half ago because they were getting so many complaints about people measuring it and determining that it was higher than the specifications said. Because I have measured machines and they routinely were higher than the specifications used to say. The only one that I'm aware of that is really a quiet machine is the Sand CO2 heat pump water heater, which is also the best in class. I don't work for them, but I would install only this machine for every project if I could, because of its the fact that it's just an arm and a leg better than the others from a global warming perspective, because it uses carbon dioxide as a refrigerant, so it has a natural refrigerant.
Great. Karen, this might be for you again, following up on some of the training opportunities that BayREN can offer. Is there a timeline for BayREN to put together specifically a 120 volt plug-in heat pump water heater education and resources for building departments?
We've started looking at that. We have a heat pump water heater training for building departments, and so we want to fold that in so that it covers both 120 volt and 240 volt. And we've done it sort of informally, I think, in the last couple, but we're looking at what more we can do along those lines.
Is there any, just in general for everyone, are there any materials or specification manuals, materials, standards for energy efficiency and electrification, specifically looking for affordable housing that could be included in a bid packet? And if no answers, we can maybe circle back around to that one in the chat later on. If anyone can spark some ideas later on. We'll move on to the next one. This one's directed at Eric. What are some examples of permitting throughout other areas that reflect best practices local jurisdictions can adopt that you've seen?
I would love to have more expertise in this. I think it's I would love to see somebody dive into the research and look at how things are being doing in other countries. I have some knowledge about solar in other countries and know that our paperwork burden is the highest of all the countries that I'm aware of, which includes France, Italy, Scandinavia, and Australia. So they all spend substantially less time in the paperwork in order to have a functional solar array that's installed. And I think that the same is probably true in other ways. We do have a very exacting set of requirements and require permits for things that in France or Italy don't even require permits. And I think that, this is, I don't want to come off as polemical. I think it's actually just kind of real talk. Like, we've got a culture in which we want everything to be permitted and inspected, but at the end of the day, contractors are licensed professionals, and we don't have dentists have their work inspected for every cleaning they do. It would be ridiculous, right? And so if you're going to insist that people spend 10 years and pass exams on law and pass exams on the trades in order to be able to pull a permit, you should give them some benefit of the doubt for easy projects like residential electrification, which honestly are not very complex. And Tom suggested that maybe, and I think there are some hybrid options out there. I'd be happy to see free online permits and then an optional inspection, or 1 out of 30 projects randomly inspected. But just from a back of envelope perspective, we've got it. I did the calculation just while we were sitting here. We've got 14 million dwellings in California. And so in the very best case, if we manage to shave it down to 2 hours per inspection of contractor time only, we'd need to hire 5,000 people, just the private contractors, not including city inspector time. We'd need to hire 5,000 people for 10 years just to fill out inspection paperwork and sit in for inspections and drive around cities and open doors for people to look at stuff. And if it were really adding a huge value to the process, maybe that would be worth it. But, we never have anything corrected at our inspections. So it just feels like a total waste of time most of the time. You go there, the inspectors are there for 15 minutes, and, are they going to find some glaring defect? It's a big safety issue. Probably not, since 95% of gas water heaters have for 100 years been installed with no permits, and we haven't had safety issues there. So
Great. I think we've hit almost all of the questions that I see. There's been a lot of talk about the tech Clean California not offering a rebate for the sand CO2. Is there any reason for that, or is there any work to offer that rebate in the future?
that's correct. It was eligible in the last round of tech, but this round of tech now requires that you be able to have the utility demand response program remotely modify the tank temperature. And the sand CO2 doesn't have that feature. You can turn it on and off remotely, but you can't change the tank temperature. So unfortunately, it's not eligible right now.
Okay, thank you, everyone. With that, I think we will go. Jack from AEA said it doesn't have that feature yet. So maybe in the future, it will be eligible for the tech rebates. Okay, with that, we will get into a little bit of closeout and housekeeping. The slides will be posted online. Here is a link, but we will also be sending the link out, which will probably be a little bit easier for each of you than, choosing to try and kind of write this down right now. And then one thing we would like you to do right now is, as Karen mentioned, we host these forums 4 times a year. It's really important to get feedback on what you liked or didn't like, or what you'd like to hear at a future forum, things we can improve on, that we should do more of. Whether we should have them all virtual, hybrid, any feedback you really want to give. But it really, really does help us out, since these are meant to be as useful as possible for you all. So respondents will be entered into a giveaway to win a solar phone charger, because that's a fun little way to try and get you to hopefully respond to this survey. You'll get an email, or you can follow the link from the slides, or so that you don't forget, I encourage you all to just scan this QR code right now, so that the survey is open on your phones.